Okay, ladies and gentlemen, time to sit down and start the next session. We are going into our largest market area, and we'd like to take the opportunity to introduce Inessa and Svetlana.
Thank you, Lars. I'm Chief Commercial Officer for Tele2 Russia, and this is a great honor for me to be here today to introduce outstanding performance of Tele2 Russia and share my best knowledge of telecom market in Russia. We'll start from the key highlights which happened during the last Capital Market Day. Of course, this is not everything we would like to show and share with you, but this is maybe most important ones. Because as always in Russia, we have very interesting years, and this year as well was very interesting ones. First of all, we launched 4 new regions. This is Far East regions. Secondly, we have very good process towards technology neutrality. We made some significant improvements in the distribution. And of course, last but not least, we're making significant improvement and showing very good results working with our employees, deserving Best Employees Study Award. So all of that I will cover in my presentation. So I hope that it will give you understanding of our market. We'll start my presentation from very important information. As you know, Russian market is becoming saturated. It's not growing as it was growing in the past. And of course, to increase market share both in subscribers and revenue is cost a lot. And if you can see, most of the competitors is not trying already to gain the market share. For them is the main focus to retain, because additional subscribers cost you more money, and that's a big question mark if you can have the return of investments. The only one who is continue to grow, and please believe me, because I'm a commercial director, that we're going to continue to grow, this is both in subscribers and revenue. How we're doing that? Of course, ARPU is one of the key drivers. So we are working hard to improve our ARPU. In spite, we are limited, pretty limited with our data services, but still voice revenue and data is growing and helping us to grow also in ARPU. 4 percentage points, which we showed in the last quarter, is equal or even better for some of our competitors. In spite, as you know, someone who is deeply involved in the Russian market knows that actually the price for voice is decreasing every quarter and year-on-year basis. In order to minimize this risk, definitely we need to grow minutes of use. And that's done, and the whole market is actually moving on net tariffs. This year, everyone, and also including Tele2, moves to 0 on net tariffs. That's definitely push a big pressure on the EBITDA margin. And not only that, as you know, all the investments, both in sales and marketing, also in the rollout, requires a lot of money. And actually, you don't generate those money from consumers. So you need to be very cost conscious by driving your investments and thinking carefully in what area you're going to invest. So with us as well, we're under pressure in terms of EBITDA margin. But if you see on the figures, we're pretty consistent in delivering what we promised. Yes. And you can see the latest quarter shows good result, 38%, and we promise you that fourth quarter will also be quite good in terms of EBITDA margin. In terms of investments, it was some big rollout and big money invested into the market because it was 3G coverage. And you know, one of the best, how to say, the biggest company who made the biggest investment was Megafon. Megafon was historically very strong in the data rollout. Now MTS is catching up, and the only one who's increasing capex from revenue is MTS. Tele2 as always very consistent in terms of the activities and shown very healthy percentage of capex in the revenue. Very important element related to the data. Definitely most of you know, and sometimes even questioning yourself how Tele2 Russia can continue growing so successfully, having a certain limitation in the data. Of course, we don't think that Edge can replace 3G. of 4G in the future, definitely. But with our outstanding coverage of edge, 100% of all the territory covered by our edge, gives us currently very good support. And if you can see from very important figures, internet users, you see the black one, this is Tele2, that in the last 1.5 years, we have been keeping very high level of internet users. That means that our subscribers satisfied and using the service heavily. And you can understand that Big Free, most of the investment, definitely invested in the biggest city, while Tele2, having 100% of edge coverage, presents in all the small cities and villages. Yeah? According to the latest information, Megaphone currently has only 32% of internet users. So we are keeping the leading percentage-wise the internet. At the same time, it's very important also to see that the ARPU for the market, that means for the Big Free, is not increasing dramatically. In spite the traffic, just look at the traffic. It's really rocket science, yes? That means that traffic does not bring money, which we're supported to get by Big Free. And what they're doing, that's very interesting. Just look at those figures. This is modem, the sales of USB modems. They drop it almost 2 times. Why? Of course, the question is simple. They want to generate money, and the traffic does not bring money. So now they start focusing, as we already did, they start focusing on small screen sizes. So they start focusing on mobile surfing because they need to get money, they need to get return on investments, yes? And this is the latest tendency, yes? Tele2 is also growing. We have growth almost 3–4% on the data ARPU. So Edge supports us a lot in terms of our competitive activities on the market. And it's very important because, of course, the ARPU can grow more or less. It depends on your product portfolio, how you manage pricing, how good you are at the product portfolio, and how quickly you react on the market. But you cannot lie to the consumers. And here you see that 91% of our consumers are satisfied with the current service of our data products. And look at those figures for Big Free. And look at the value-added services usage. That means that we are very competitive, even with our edge. And we do understand that with the current smartphone penetration, we have very sufficient and sustainable growth in the coming years. According to the latest information, the smartphone 3G penetration in Russia is on the level of 18%. Of course, in the big cities like Moscow, St. Petersburg, it can be on the level of 30%, but across Russia is only 18%. That means that according to all the vendors and all the information, we see that only by 2015, half of the market will be 3G. So we do understand that with the current technology, which we have in Tele2, we have opportunity to grow further. Yes, and we demonstrate that constantly through our quarterly performance. Distribution. Why we decided to talk about distribution today? You know that the biggest investments which we are doing was done in sales and marketing, and the biggest part is acquisition. And in order to deliver EBITDA when the whole market is under pressure, then you need to gain additional subscribers. And as you know, we're growing faster than our competitors do. We need to be very proactive and long-term oriented in all our things, and especially in commercial area. And we do understand that how effectively we manage our distribution either will have success or will fail. We definitely measure everything which relates to customer contribution and lifetime value. And of course, we do see that online channel is the highest one in terms of customer contribution. But online channel is very limited in terms of capacity. Unfortunately, you cannot make 100% of your sales through the online. I would be happy in case that's possible, but that's not possible. What else we see? Of course, we see mono brands. I will talk about mono brands later in my presentation. local telecom. We're historically very strong with the local partners. Why? Because we can make a tailor-made approach to that in every region. We're very fast in our reaction. We're very strong in our logistic. We're very good in communication. Yes? And as you know, Big Three, they're focusing more on the federal channels, and federal channels are always very expensive. In our case, and just believe me, for Big Three as well, federal channels like Eurosnet and Swissnoi, they're 2 times more expensive in terms of sales and acquisition cost. Of course, we cannot skip them at all. And you can see that federal channels were growing, and we made some big steps working with federal channels in 2011. We signed big contracts with Eurosnet and Swissnoi and double sales through that channel. But we absolutely openly and honestly say them, guys, 15% or 70% is the maximum share you can take in our sales. Why? Because the more we grow their share within our sales, the more expensive or the more higher cost we will get. Yes? So for us, this is the maximum we can afford for Eurosnet and Swissnoi. Yes? Because we do see a lot of potentials coming from other channels. We're very strong with local channels. We're very strong with alternative channels. We're introducing new channels like federal food retail, like federal alternative channels like Post of Russia. Yes? So that's why for us it's very, currently the situation is very healthy, and to be honest, we are best in class currently with sales acquisition costs. Monobrand. Of course, for us, and not only for us, monobrand is becoming the strategical channel. We were not very quick in terms of making the decisions in which direction and how to move. And the reason why, as you know, we are not really, how to say, trying to build a bicycle. Yes. Of course, we look at the market, we see what mistakes our competitors are doing, and trying to learn from those mistakes. And 2 years ago, we decided that we are ready to drive our monobrand retail. At that time, we had something around 400 shops, which were separately managed by some local dealers. There were no common approach. It was just one element which combined all those shops. It was Tele2 logo on the shops, and that's all. What we did for the last 2 years, we created a new format of the monobrand shops. We introduced the format of mobile phones and accessories. We invented our own franchising business model. And we are managing our network through the partners. In spite, we do control all the elements inside the shop. We control the quality of sales. We train them. We plan the sales, we're targeting phones and accessories, yes? So everything what is going on in the shops is under control. If you see what is done by our competitors, you will see quite a huge number of shops. And sometimes I'm asked the question, Inessa, why not driving you, why you're not increasing the number of shops? And to be honest, for me, it's very important that those shops is bringing return of investments. We are discount on the Russian market. We can't afford ourselves just to have shops which generate losses. If our competitors can do that, we are not. We're not supposed to put those money on our competitors' shoulders, yes? So we are only for effective monobrand shops. And we succeeded in that. Since for the last year, we rebranded more than 250 shops. The coming 200 shops will be rebranded in the coming months. As you know, we also signed this year the agreement with Swissnoi. This is a federal telecom dealer, and now they're managing some of our shops. Again, they don't have exclusivity. Currently, we have 4 shops in our portfolio. Yes, some of them in Far East, and we're going to increase numbers, but not significantly. Yeah. Customer satisfaction. Of course, we on the Russian market is focused on the growth. We're subscribing consumers, we are increasing revenue, etc. But we do understand that on mature market, it's not only main target to gain the consumers, but it's very important how to retain them. And there is nothing better than customer service. The better you are in the customer service, the more loyal customers you have, the lower churn you have. And as you know, Tele2 Russia has the lowest churn across industry. We have almost 2 times lowest churn in the industry than our competitors. And how we do that? On top of the healthy distribution, yes? On top of a very competitive product portfolio, we're absolutely the best one in terms of the customer satisfaction. If you remember the chart from Matt's presentation, he was showing you that all Tele2 countries is targeting 80% of customer satisfaction. Tele2 Russia is absolutely leader in that. We have 85. Even in some quarters, we have 89. And this kind of improvement and this kind of high customer satisfaction is supported from another side by constant cost reduction in the customer operational. Yes, so we're managing carefully our cost, yes, because we do understand that in order to drive customer, you need to work with your processes. You need to be very careful with everything you do in the call centers. And this is the outstanding results. It's very difficult for the competitors to come closer to us. By that slide, I would like to confirm you and to show that we're very consistent with our strategy towards entering the new markets and towards dealing with the regions. Currently in our portfolio, we have 43 regions, and we have unique approach to each of the region. We divide our regions into the 3 clusters: newcomer, challenger, and defender. And according to the clustering, we build the strategy in terms of the product portfolio, sales and marketing investments. When we enter the market, and we are a newcomer, we're definitely very aggressive in terms of price. We have almost 35–40% difference with our closest competitor, and all the focus is built on the acquisition, on the subscriber acquisition. As soon as we gain a certain market share, something more than 20%, we start focusing on profitability, and then on top of the subscriber acquisition, we're focused on the retention and money generation. As soon as we reach #1 position, then we're focusing on profitability, yes, on retention, on ARPU protection. From 43 regions, now we have 9 regions, which is clearly #1 on the market with the highest EBITDA margin. On my next slide, I will show how we do that. The challenger, now we have 21 regions with the challenger, and newcomer 8, including 4 of Far East. Defender and challenger currently represents more than 75–80% of our population coverage. So newcomers, 8 regions, they cover something around 8.5 million. Of course, they will grow, but this is not very significant in terms of figures. And the main growth is still coming with the defender and challenger. Every time I'm meeting with investors, we always trying to show that the main growth or the growth is still coming not only from the new regions, but also from the defender regions, from the old regions which were launched before 2007. And that's very important to show. Those old regions, in average, they have more than 40% market share. And look at those outstanding figures. In spite they have 40% on average of market share, they're still growing. If you remember the figures, market grows only by 1–2%. Those regions still growing by 5% in their sub-based. While you see there is very good trend in terms of churn. So in spite they had the lowest churn across industry, it's still they're doing a lot of things to decrease it, yes? While supported by very healthy ARPU growth. In terms of revenue, so they're growing even more in revenue. By 8%, the whole market grows only by 6–7% with very big drivers like data. And all the regions, with all the price wars we have on the market, with very big pressure on EBITDA, with very big pressure on pricing, they're still delivering outstanding figures. And if you remember the financial performance of Big Three, most probably you remember the EBITDA margin. And look at the EBITDA margin for the old regions. They're even higher than for the competitors, even higher for big three. So, and you can imagine that we don't have such a huge possibilities as they do in data, yes? So we're trying our product portfolio in this way, so it can allow us to grow both in subscribers as well as continue showing outstanding elements in EBITDA margin. What about new regions? New regions, of course, focusing on the subscribers. And they are growing 22%. Market growth 1-2%, we're growing 22%. This is a huge growth. Working very carefully with churn, and you see a huge job is done with churn. So we are not only gaining, we're retaining them and improving significantly the ARPU. Currently, we have around 24% on average for the new regions, and you can see that last year, for all the new regions launched, we made a break-even. So now they're on the level of in average, on the level of 20% EBITDA margin and increasing. Yes. We'll just for several minutes stay here as Far East launch. Would like to say that we launched 4 regions 6 months before the official requirement in the licenses. So according to requirement in the licenses, we need to launch Far East in May 2013. We did it 6 months before that. Why? Because we do believe in that market. We do see a great potentials in Far East. Just for your information that the average ARPU for Far East is 30 or 40% higher than the average in the regions we're present, yes? So we do see a huge possibility. Also, we saw a very good feedback from the focus group we did on the market. People are really waiting for Tele2. They know Tele2. They know that we're fair, that we're very transparent, that we have very good product portfolio, and people were waiting for us. You can see a huge crowd on the main square. People were standing in the queue. Can you imagine in the mature market, people are standing in the queue just to get the SIM cards, and we have it. Also, very important to say that we are able to have the best prices on the market, not only because we're so good in doing some right things with the distribution product portfolio, but also because we're managing carefully all our investments. Of course, biggest part of the investment is done in sales and marketing, and you can see that in spite we're growing quicker than the market, and that requires investments, we are showing the reductions towards the revenue. The percentage of sales and marketing cost is decreasing. The same we're doing for the administrative costs. It's very important to show you this nice picture that our that employee productivity is the highest in the industry. It's several times higher than for the big three, yes? And we continue to improve that. And last but not least, it's very important that in spite of the highest productivity, in spite of all the opportunities on the market, we are showing very good results with the employee engagement. And for all the elements, like engaged, satisfied, we are best in class. Yeah, we are best in class. Of course, you can say that the market gives opportunity for employees to grow, and that's true. Tele2 currently is the best place to work because each and every employee has a great opportunity to develop his career by doing many interesting things, by really being a part of the success which is happening on the market. Now I will pass the word to Svetlana, and she will update us on the technology.
Thank you very much, Inessa. Okay, so let me first introduce myself. I'm Svetlana Skvortsova, work as a strategy director for Tele2 Russia. And I'm extremely happy to be here with you today, to be part of our team, and to tell you a little bit about Tele2 business in Russia. Well, Inessa has concentrated mostly on the commercial strategy on the Russian market, but I will tell you a little bit more about the progress that Tele2 is making in terms of the technological development, and I will say several words about how the regulatory environment is developing and what are the recent most interesting news in that area. So to start with, I wanted to show you the current spectrum situation on the Russian market in terms of 4G spectrum availability. So let's start with first looking at who got what in terms of the 4G spectrum. First of all, as you all know, July this year, there were LTE tenders held in Russia, whereby MTS, Wimpelcom, Megafon, and Rostelecom obtained bands in 3 spectrums. The first 2 are 700 and 800, and then another one in the high frequency, 2.6 gigahertz. Okay, so that's it. But then also we have Rostelecom, who in 2011 obtained LTE spectrum in TDD mode in 2.3, 2.4 gigahertz, and also part of the spectrum was left with MTS and also with Megafon. It was in TDD as well, following the completion of the LTE tenders in Russia. The last but not least is the LTE FDD band that is available to IOTA. So now that we have discussed what everybody has, let's see where actually it is possible to develop the LTE networks right now. So if you look at the spectrum that has been obtained after the LTE tender, we will see that talking about 700, it's not even in the commercial pipeline of the most vendors today, and it is not part of the LTE frequency map as presented by the Russian regulator. So it's a little bit earlier. 800. For 800 and for 2.6, we all know that the conversion is required because the frequencies are currently held by the militaries. From what we know, the actual amount that the Big Four or the Big Three and Rostelecom will be required to pay is not yet known. We have heard various estimations. One of them is, for example, that each of them will have to pay 25 billion rubles for the conversion. But more than that, the actual dates of when the conversion will be completed are not yet known. So we see that with this, it will take some time before it will be possible to realize that. We know that MTS launched LTE TDD, but also in Moscow region, only in Moscow region. And then from this current graph, you see that the actual and the only possibility on the Russian market to the Russian mobile players to launch LTE is via this spectrum. It is clean and it is available on the territory of the whole Russian Federation, which means that it is only IOTA and its sister company Megafon who are capable of rolling out LTE networks on their own, which they're actually doing. You have heard that so far 15 cities have been launched, and a number of more cities will be launched before the end of the year. But what the rest are supposed to do? And here, actually, we see a huge opportunity that is presented by this band, 1800. You see that this band is available to all market players in Russia. And we very strongly feel that this is the way to go. But not only because of the Russian situation. Let me share with you some findings from the global studies that are done by the various research agencies. So several months ago, 1800 has been considered one of the key LTE bands in the world. Today, it is pretty sure that LTE 1800 has become the key band for the LTE implementation in the world. This is confirmed by the numbers. In fact, now 38% of LTE network implementations are done in the 1800 band, 38%. But not only this. If you look at the ecosystem for the mobile devices, you see that it has developed very fast. And right now, already 130 device models have been announced. So there is a good choice on the market. When we ask ourselves, how has that happened? The answer comes clearly. The majority of the global operators actually have access to this band. 1800 is the most popular band in the world. And of course, it represents a huge interest to the ecosystem of the network manufacturers and the device vendors. Besides, it has proven to be the most cost-efficient way to build the networks. And already we have seen various reports confirming that actually building the network in 1800 is substantially cheaper than developing the network in 2.6 and in other higher frequency bands. And finally, due to the fact that a lot of investments have already been made into the 1800 sites, it's much cheaper and much faster to build it. Therefore, it is actually considered to be a tool, a very powerful tool to bring mobile broadband from big cities to the remote and rural areas. Therefore, now it's the globally accepted fact that LTE 1800 is the most prominent and the most interesting band. So, understanding this, we have made several steps in developing and pushing through the LTE progress in 1800 in Russia. About 1 year ago, despite strong opposition from our competitors, we actually managed to promote the 1800 band and to convince the regulator not to prohibit it as one of the LTE bands. We managed to obtain frequency permissions and to run the trials, and those trials, which were actually conducted by the Radio Scientific and Research Institute under the auspices of the Telecommunication Ministry, they proved to be very successful. In the 2 regions where we had those trials, we have proven that GSM service was under no degradation, but more than that, we have demonstrated really high speeds. We have obtained speeds up to 80 megahertz per second in 1800. Since these trials have been so successful and taken into account other developments that I have just discussed with you, we see that actually the opposition from the competition is now transforming into a sort of buy-in of the technology. So right now, what we observe is that they have become interested in conducting those trials. Well, these days is very, this whole history is developing, and we expect that in a week from now, the State Commission on Radio Frequencies will make a decision requesting to conduct the new LTE trials in 3 Russian cities or in 3 Russian regions, Moscow region, Kaluga, and Nizhny Novgorod, that will also be conducted by the Scientific and Research Institute with the participation of all the operators who wish to do so. And there is a very firm deadline to complete those trials. It is expected that the final report on the outcome of the trials is supposed to be handed to the State Commission on Radio Frequencies by the 1st of June of 2013. Well, of course, we cannot now predict the exact day when the technology neutrality will be allowed in Russia, but we, of course, see a lot of progress going on. And of course, we will continue to do our best to make this happen as soon as possible. So, just to sum up on this slide, for us, the big question now is not whether the technology neutrality will be implemented in Russia, but when. And having said that, there is another very interesting regulatory development going on in Russia right now, the introduction of mobile number portability. It's quite interesting because just yesterday, the bill on the MNP has passed through the 2nd reading in the Russian parliament, and it is expected that it will be already approved by the Russian parliament before the end of this week. Therefore, the deadline seems to be already set. A lot of sources say that the deadline of 1st December 2013 will not be moved. Well, a lot of speculations have been recently made about the actual potential uptake of this service on the Russian market. And it's really hard to say who is right and who is wrong now. However, we will need to see what will be the bylaws corresponding to this bill. Specifically, 3 things have to be defined right now. It has been already defined that the service to the end user should not exceed 100 ruble for the ported number. However, we don't know whether the operators will want to cover that cost by themselves or whether it will be transferred to the subscriber. The second thing, it's not yet clear what will be the area where the ported number will be possible to handle. Will that be the regional limits or will that be the national territory? And then, of course, there is a lot of other uncertainties which we hope will be cleared out in the months to come. However, one thing we know, we think that it brings a very good potential upside for Tele2 operations in Russia. Of course, it's a multi-SIM market, and we are pretty aware of that fact. However, we also understand that a lot of subscribers have been keeping their number just because they couldn't give it up. a lot of contacts know about that number, or the number is precious to them. So we understand that as long as it becomes possible to take this number and to go to an operator who can serve you better, that will be done immediately. And just hearing what Inessa told you about the customer service, about the customer satisfaction, we strongly believe that we are one of the few candidates on the Russian market for the consumer to take their number and to come to us. Okay, and now a little bit more on the technological side. You have also learned from Inessa's presentation that the subscriber numbers have been growing, and you already see that now, this year, end of third quarter, we have 2 million more subscribers than we had a year ago. But not only that, the actual traffic consumed by our customers is growing as well, both voice traffic and data traffic. And of course, it's a big focus area for us to support with rational investment, to preserve the quality of service and to improve the quality of service. So, on this way, we of course trying to increase as much as possible the population coverage. And it is actually on purpose that we are showing here two types of coverage, the territory coverage and the population coverage. This is the best demonstration of the efficiency, of how the efficiency is married with the desire to provide the best service to the customer. We are, in fact, not trying to cover all the land or all the air. We are trying to cover all the population that lives in our footprint. So right now, we already have 94% of the population. And we see that our customers really value that, and they confirm that. But we are also part of a number of programs that are developed by the Russian government, and also the state sees our efforts and awards them with the recognition. So quite recently, we have been named by Roskomnadzor, the state regulator, the telecom regulator, as leaders in terms of federal highway coverage. So in our areas of footprint, we have the best highway coverage. And then, on a final note, of course, we are doing great right now, and we're all looking forward into the possibility of LTE implementation. So, just several words, how prepared do we feel we are when this happens? So, first of all our sites are prepared in terms of the site construction costs for the LTE implementation. And of course, the site construction, these words represent the highest cost in terms of the network rollout. Then, starting with 2009, all our base stations are LTE compatible. And we see that already a big share of our base stations can support LTE. The same refers to the transmission network. We're also developing that network. And then, of course, understanding that in 1800, the refarming will be required. We have already started optimizing our frequencies. So we are trying to prepare a network as much as we can for the LTE, so that when it is possible, we can do it really fast. And just as a demonstration of the fact that we are very well prepared, I have to remind you that during those trials, the LTE trials that we have conducted early this year, in just several weeks, we managed to not only to obtain the frequency permission, but also to plan the frequencies, to plan the network, to roll out the network, and to conduct the demonstrations. So we really feel strong and confident that whenever this becomes possible, we will do it in a fast and a cost-efficient manner, in a way that we are doing all of the previous work. So with this, I hand it back to Inessa and ask her to do some summary.
Okay, I will summarize. If you allow us, I will summarize what we've just presented with Svetlana. Tele2 is continuing to be the most dynamic and fast-growing telecom company on the Russian market, continue performing in the unique discounter business model. We are pretty successful in terms of all the progress made in the technology neutrality, and we are have very good user experience in 4G and supported by Edge. So we hope with Svetlana, but by our short presentation, we managed to build some confidence and trust in our market and further successful growth. If not everything we touch upon in our presentation, we'll have Q&A session. We'll hope to answer in more details and provide more information. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Inessa and Svetlana. Very good. We are running a little bit short on time, so we're going to do a 10-minute Q&A session here. Who would like to start? I think PK in the back has not yet received a
Thank you, Peter Corneliusen Schibwe. If you are granted, the market is granted network neutrality, and you can use your 1800 spectrum for data, for LTE, would that leave you with any capacity issues on your voice services if you have to allocate part of it to data? And secondly, the introductory remarks about pricing in Russia, voice pricing, moving down constantly, needing to increase minute of use. When do you think the Russian market will move sort of towards bundles or buckets in earnest? Thank you.
Thanks, PK. That was good questions. I think the first one was regarding LTE 1800. If we would introduce that on our spectrum portfolio, would we have capacity issues at some point in time? Then it comes to pricing. When pricing pressure, will that lead at some point in time to bundles being introduced? We're going to do it like this. I think Svetlana could start to elaborate on LTE. I would like to get support also from Joachim on that one. And then, of course, Inessa, that's your home turf when it comes to pricing. So, Svetlana, please.
Well, as far as the technology neutrality is concerned, remember the trials that I mentioned that we have conducted earlier this year. Actually, the purpose of these trials was, or one of the key purposes, was to prove that GSM service, GSM quality of service will not deteriorate because of the LTE introduction. And we have shown it both on 5 megahertz and on 10 megahertz, and we are pretty sure that with the modern level of the technology, it's quite possible. And we have actually demonstrated that it's quite possible to provide LTE and GSM in the adjacent bandwidths. Okay.
And when it comes to capacity, if the microphone is on, yes. If it comes to capacity, of course, there's no perpetuum mobile. So you obviously need to replan your frequencies in order to free up some spectrum that you then move to LTE. And we have made the plans, and due to new technology available, we are able to get more out of the spectrum, which we have already started to do. We believe that we will be able to condense our 2G usage in order to free up sufficient spectrum for LTE. And as we are also in the belief that going forward we will see also voice over LTE coming up relatively soon, we will see then also voice moving into LTE, which is a more efficient way to do voice. So yes, there is some constraint, but we have our plan for that, and we are very confident that this will work out for us good.
And then Inessa, when it comes to pricing.
Yes, I'll just repeat once again that voice is still the main driver of the growth, both for us and for our competitors. We see some attempts of our competitors to introduce bundles. It's still not very successful, just the beginning, so definitely we're going to see carefully. If we see the opportunity coming from that area, we'll also think what to do. But currently we do see that the decrease in voice prices stimulate the minutes of use. And Russia, we still have very small level of more minutes of use. Yes, so we have still opportunity to grow, even compared with some European trends. Yes, so we do believe that we're currently pretty comfortable with the situation. We do see carefully what's going on in the market in terms of bundling, but we don't see big moves towards that direction.
So Inessa, do you think it's hard to introduce bundles in a prepaid environment, or would that be?
No, it's not hard. Just a question if there is a demand. Yes, so of course you can do that. But in our case, then it's a question mark if we still can secure the price leadership position, and for us this is a key. Yes, for our competitors, they're trying to somehow to gain extra money. Yes, seeing some less opportunities coming from data. Yeah, because they don't generate a lot of money from data, so they're trying to make something else in order to bring money. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think Ryan hasn't yet had opportunity, so.
Hi, it's Ryan Fox from Morgan Stanley. 2 questions, please. Firstly, what impact do you see on distribution channels from the joint ownership of Euroset by Megafon and VimpelCom? And secondly, could you maybe comment on the trends that you're seeing from the big 3 operators at the moment in terms of competitive dynamics and just what you're seeing in terms of competition?
Thanks, Ryan. I'm going to repeat them. When it comes to, there's a big, it's a change in ownership, you could say, on Euroset in the Russian market. If we use them as a distributor, federal dealer, what kind of impact that will have. And then also when it comes to marketing efforts from the big three currently, what kind of marketing environment do we see? I think they're both for you, Inessa.
So regarding the first question on the Euroset, currently they take something around 7-8% from our sales. We don't depend on federal channels as big three. So we're pretty comfortable with any situations going to happen with the ownership of Euroset. Recently we had a meeting, so I'm very comfortable regarding our future. So we will be working with Euroset. We'll have almost the same, it will depend most probably on our both corporations, almost the same share. And in case some turbulences will happen in the future, we can easily compensate by our monobrand distribution or by our local partners. So we don't see any threats coming from that area. And we have very good cooperation with Euroset, so yeah. The second question was related to the marketing activities, yes,
exactly.
of Big Three. Yes, so you need to take into account from one side big pressure on EBITDA, from another side some inflation which is coming for all the marketing activities, both on the media, on the sales acquisition cost. Yeah, so you cannot compensate every year the media inflation, for example. Yeah, so you need to be very careful where you invest and how you invest. We do see some signs that Big Three cannot compensate anymore all the inflations which is coming on the market. They don't have a common tactics, so some of them start reducing some media investments but invest heavily in distribution, some vice versa. So there is no common approach. Yeah? So they're trying to make different elements. We are pretty consistent, so we have a lot of analytics in order to make the decisions also both for the media investments. And I should say that we're pretty advanced in those kind of instruments. Yeah? So that's why we have the lowest SAC on the market.
Excellent. So let's see if we're there. Everyone has. I'll take Lena.
Yes, I was wondering, the regulators discussed how much frequencies you need to allocate on LTE if technology neutrality is launched. So if it is 10 megahertz for data, how much will the cost for rollout or conversion of the network differ from if you don't have that requirement? And then also I was wondering, in terms of Yota and using Yota's network, do you believe that the other big operators will also utilize their network, or do you believe it will just be Megafon and Yota together?
Thank you, Lena. When it comes to if technology neutrality is going to be introduced, will it on what frequency band will the regulator demand, so to speak? I think that could be a joint question to be answered by you, Svetlana, and maybe Joachim can join in as well on that one. Then when it comes to Yota and the possibilities of getting commercial terms on their MVNO network, Inessa, that is also a commercial question. But let's start, Svetlana, on frequencies and technology neutrality.
Okay, well, to start with, in a number of our regions, we actually have more than 15 megahertz of spectrum in the 1800s. So for those regions, that should not be a problem from the point of view of the additional investment, right? As Joachim has pointed out, the actual investment, when you have 10 instead of 5 megahertz, arises from the fact that you have to spend something on refarming, that is building out new sites to support the GSM voice. As far as this 15 megahertz is concerned, that of course will require some more investment. However, I will not provide you some absolute figures, but maybe Joachim could just, provide an example.
Yeah, first of all, I have to say that was perfectly explained, so I don't need to add more. I can only share that when I lived in India, obviously there were many operators who had only 4.2 megahertz, and I very well know you can run a network with that. So we did our math, and we looked into that, and we know that whether it's 5 or 10, we will be able to accommodate that. What happens if you have less spectrum for 2G, you obviously need to add some sites in order to add more capacity. We cannot give a number. This is not as big as it looks like, actually. And I think we are quite confident that we will manage in both cases very well.
Thank you very much. And then Inessa, when it comes to Yota in commercial terms.
Yes, regarding some possibilities of MVNO on with Yota, yes, of course that can be one of the possible route for us, but only with the conditions that we can support our discounter business model and we can propose very good pricing for our consumers. Yes, and now it's still a question mark if we can, based on the current conditions presented by Yota, can build this successful business case. So I would just want to add that we have very good cooperations, we have very good dialogue. So we still, our discussions, they are not closed. So we are both improving the business case and adding some more information and experience. So we hope that one day we can come to some interesting and fruitful agreements.
Thank you, Inessa. I think we're going to take the, sorry, Andy and Barry, you get the first one next time. But I think we have one from Heathrow that should also be able to ask the question. So please, operator.
We have a question from Mr. Andrew Lee from Goldman Sachs. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Just two questions. One on current impact from not having 3G and 4G, and then another question on tech neutrality. Just on the current operations, I mean, you highlighted you've got the highest proportion of customers across all the competitors that use mobile internet, but you don't have 3G or 4G yet, and your competitors have not yet rolled out 3G in your regions, yet presumably will soon. Is this not a threat as capacity demands rise to your customer base? And can you confirm you're not seeing a bottleneck in customer demand due to your lack of 3G or 4G services today? And then just secondly, you exhibited very high confidence in getting tech neutrality in your presentation and achieving a positive result from the current round of tests. But following the previous tests, there was great confidence that the technology worked, and there were no expectations that you'd be required to do further tests. So I just wondered why you have so much confidence this time round. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Good questions. First one is then regarding 3G services impacting on our offer, so to speak. I think, Inessa, you could elaborate a little bit on that one. And then when it comes to confidence regarding technology neutrality, Svetlana, that's your home turf, so you take that one. But let's start, Inessa.
Yes, I will start. Maybe I will repeat the things which I already mentioned. Definitely in the long run, 3G will influence a lot on the data services and also on the satisfactions. But that will fully depend on the penetration of smartphones. At the same time, we do a lot in terms of using and installing different optimization programs, which gives you a very good service for the mobile surfing. And as you could see from the things of the customer satisfaction, I showed you that people are satisfied with the current services we have. But in the long run, of course, we cannot beat our edge 3G. That's obvious, yeah. That's why my colleagues, and I know that not only colleagues, but also stakeholders and our company is doing everything in order to get opportunity for technology neutrality, yeah. So I hope as soon as we have, so I'm as a commercial director will do everything to bring the most exciting services on the market to generate even better results. Yeah.
Thank you, Inessa, and I would like to build on what she has just said. Indeed, we are not in a hurry, and we have never been in a hurry to transfer to the technology neutrality. We see at least 2 years of the inherent growth in what we already have. Therefore, we can afford to look not in the short term, but in the mid-term and the long-term perspective. And then, having that point of view, we see that the situation is changing not only for Tele2, but also for the competitors. Their agendas are changing because of the competitive environment around them. And if last year, even this year, somebody can wait, can see what the others are doing, and can actually observe more successful competitors, in a year from now, I think it will become more necessary for everyone to pull their act together and to use any technological advantage that one can use. So we just believe that as time passes, more and more parties should be interested in the technology neutrality, and it's not only our fight, so to speak.
Thank you very much. That is excellent. So.